Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. I'll never forget the night everything changed, especially since it started in the most ordinary way possible. It was a crisp autumn evening and leaves swirled gently around the driveway. As I stepped out onto the porch, my husband Chayton was locking the front door behind us, his keys jingling softly. We were headed to a dinner party at the home of his boss Nashoba. It was a casual, friendly invitation, something Nashoba hosted annually to celebrate their company's success. Chayton assured me it was a relaxed event, but something felt different this time. "Are you sure this dress isn't too much?" I asked nervously, smoothing the soft fabric of my navy blue dress. It hugged my figure just enough to feel confident, but still modest and sophisticated. Chayton smiled reassuringly, slipping his arm around my waist. "You look beautiful, Winona, perfect for the occasion." The drive to Nashoba's house was quiet, almost contemplative. Streetlights cast golden halos against the darkening sky, and I couldn't shake the feeling of butterflies dancing in my stomach. Chayton had recently been promoted, and tonight felt like more than just a dinner. It was about making an impression. Nashoba's home was magnificent, with a sprawling front lawn and warm lights spilling from tall windows. As we entered, Nashoba greeted us personally, extending a warm handshake to Chayton and turning his eyes toward me with genuine appreciation. "Winona, it's wonderful to finally meet you," Nashoba said warmly. He was tall, confident, and impeccably dressed, with silver hair and a friendly smile. "Chayton always speaks so highly of you." "Thank you," I replied, feeling my cheeks flush. "Slight lights. Lovely to meet you too." Inside, laughter and soft music created a relaxed atmosphere. Nashoba had impeccable taste. His home was decorated elegantly, yet it felt incredibly welcoming. Candles flickered softly on tables filled with delicious appetizers, fresh flowers, and sparkling glasses. As the evening progressed, Nashoba's presence seemed magnetic. He effortlessly engaged everyone around him, genuinely attentive and charming. Several times I caught his eyes lingering briefly on me, not inappropriately, just curiously perhaps. I was imagining it, but something in his glance stirred a sense of anticipation within me. After dinner, Chayton found himself deep in conversation with some colleagues across the living room, and I stepped onto the quiet terrace for some fresh air. The garden was bathed in moonlight, the scent of autumn leaves mingling with blooming jasmine. Lost in thought, I didn't notice Nashoba step in quietly outside until he spoke gently behind me. "It's peaceful out here, isn't it?" I turned, startled, meeting his calm gaze. His eyes were gentle, reflecting a warmth that made me relax instantly. "Yes," I smiled softly, leaning slightly against the railing. "You have a beautiful home, thank you," he replied, sincerely, stepping closer, but still maintaining respectful space. "Winona, if you don't mind my saying, you seem like a person who appreciates deeper conversations more than small talk." Surprised by his insight, I laughed softly, nodding. "I suppose that's true." Nashoba paused thoughtfully before continuing. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I responded, my curiosity piqued you, and Chayton seemed genuinely happy. He began, carefully glancing briefly toward the illuminated house. "How do you maintain that kind of connection after so many years?" His question caught me off guard, not because it was interrogative, but because it was unexpectedly personal, sincere, and respectful. There was vulnerability behind his confident exterior. I hesitated for a moment, then answered truthfully, "It hasn't always been easy, Nashoba, but we've learned to communicate openly, listen deeply, and keep discovering new things about each other. I think it's about allowing ourselves to grow together." He seemed deeply moved by my words, nodding thoughtfully. "That's rare, special." Even the moment lingered gently between us, then with an expression of slight embarrassment, Nashoba looked down, chuckling softly. "I'm sorry, perhaps that was too personal." "No, not at all," I reassured quickly. "It's actually refreshing. Most people prefer to stay on the surface." Nashoba's smile returned warmly, and he took a deep breath as though gathering courage. "There's something I'd like to suggest," he began cautiously, but please know it's completely respectful and sincere if it makes you uncomfortable in any way. Just say the word and we'll never speak of it again. His seriousness startled me and my heart quickened. I felt both nervous and intrigued. Sensing the sincerity in his voice, "What is it?" I asked quietly, almost holding my breath. He glanced back toward the house once more, making sure we were alone. "I've noticed how Chayton's confidence and happiness at work have blossomed since your marriage. Strengthened. You're clearly an extraordinary woman who deeply understands relationships. I'd like your help with something personal, confused but deeply curious." I asked help with what exactly? Nashoba hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I've struggled for a long time to open myself emotionally, to truly connect," he admitted, voice tinged with vulnerability. "My relationships tend to be superficial. Even though I crave depth and sincerity, I see in you someone who could help me understand what it means to build that kind of emotional connection." His request surprised me greatly. My initial shock quickly softened as I recognized his sincerity. He wasn't asking for anything inappropriate. He was reaching out genuinely for emotional guidance. Still, the intimacy of the request left me momentarily speechless. "I realize this is unusual," he added, gently sensing my hesitation. "I don't want you to feel pressured, but I deeply respect your insights, Winona, and I think you might be exactly the person who could help me." A wave of emotions washed through me. His openness was disarming, and beneath my initial shock was genuine compassion. I'd never anticipated something like this, but I couldn't ignore the earnestness in his eyes, nor could I dismiss the growing curiosity I felt about his request. Taking a breath, I finally responded, my voice soft but steady. "Nashoba, your honesty means a great deal. Let's talk more privately later. I'd like to hear more about what you're feeling, and maybe there's some way I can help." His relief was visible, and his smile returned gentle, appreciative and filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Winona, truly." As we stood there under the moonlight, the subtle tension between us gave way to mutual respect and a new, unexpected emotion bond. I wondered with evening still held, feeling both nervous anticipation and a quiet sense of purpose. Little did I know how deeply this conversation would change everything. After our conversation on the terrace, I found myself drifting back into the party, my mind spinning with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Chayton was still engrossed in his conversation, laughing heartily at a colleague's story. He glanced pet up, smiling warmly when he saw me. "Everything all right?" he asked, gently placing his hand on the small of my back. "Of course," I reassured him softly. "Nashoba and I just had an interesting talk." Chayton's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Oh," I squeezed his hand gently, offering a reassuring smile. "Nothing to worry about, just something personal he wanted to share. I'll tell you later." Chayton nodded trustingly. It was one of the qualities I adored most about him, his genuine trust and respect for my autonomy. As the party wounded down, guests gradually drifted away, bidding good night with cheerful farewells. Nashoba caught my eye again from across the room, nodding. We hadn't exchanged many words since the terrace, but the brief, quiet glance spoke volumes. We both knew our conversation wasn't finished. It just as we prepared to leave, Nashoba approached us once more, a thoughtful expression on his face. He placed a friendly hand on Chayton's shoulder, smiling warmly. "Chayton, I appreciate you both joining tonight. You're lucky to have someone like Winona by your side." Chayton grinned, prettily slipping his arm around my waist. "Believe me, I know." Nashoba turned to me, hesitating slightly before speaking. "Winona, could I borrow just a moment of your time before you leave? There's one thing I'd like to discuss quickly." "Of course," I replied calmly, though my heartbeat quickened again. Chayton politely excused himself to wait by the door, giving us privacy. Nashoba guided me gently toward a quiet corner away from lingering guests. His voice was soft, thoughtful. "Winona, I didn't intend to put you on the spot earlier. If I made you uncomfortable, I'm truly sorry." "No," I reassured him, immediately honestly. "It just surprised me, but in a good way." "Your openness was refreshing." He exhaled slowly, visibly Relieved, I'm glad to hear that. I paused, then quietly asked Nashoba, "Why me?" He hesitated, clearly choosing his words with care. "Because there's something about you, your sincerity, your kindness they've rarely encountered. You're incredibly grounded. And I've always admired that from afar." He smiled gently, his eyes filled with sincerity. "And seeing how deeply you've influenced Chayton's life, I realized perhaps you could help me understand myself better. I want to learn how to create meaningful connections. I don't want to keep living behind walls." His words struck a deep chord within me, reminding me of my own journey. I remembered the times I'd struggled to communicate openly with Chayton, afraid of vulnerability. It had taken years of growth, patience, and courage to achieve the intimacy we now shared. "I know what it's like," I admitted softly. "I used to fear emotional honesty too. It can feel like jumping into the unknown, but it's always worth it." Nashoba's expression softened, gratitude and vulnerability mingling in his eyes. "That's exactly it. That's the courage I wish I had. You do," I assure it gently. "You're showing it right now." For a moment silence stretched between us, heavy with understanding. Finally, Nashoba spoke again, a bit hesitantly. "Winona, if you're open to it, I'd like to speak again, perhaps somewhere less formal, more relaxed. I'd like your perspective, honest insights. I promise absolute respect and discretion." My heart fluttered at the intensity of his request. It was sincere, respectful, and undeniably compelling. I paused, carefully weighing my response. Ultimately, compassion outweighed any lingering doubt. "Of course," I answered softly. "Let's arrange a time soon. I genuinely want to help." Nashoba visibly relaxed, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "Thank you, Winona. You can't imagine how much that means." I returned his smile, feeling a warmth blossom in my chest. We parted on that understanding, standing, sharing a quiet nod of mutual trust during the drive home. Chayton glanced over, curiously breaking the comfortable silence, so he began with a teasing smile. "Are you going to fill me in, or am I supposed to guess what happened tonight?" Laughing gently, I reached over to hold his hand, choosing honesty as always. Nashoba opened up about feeling isolated emotionally. I explained quietly. He wants to learn how to connect deeply, but he's struggling to get there alone. Chayton listened thoughtfully, squeezing my hand. "I can see that he's always been guarded, especially about personal things, but why come to you?" "Maybe because I'm outside his usual world," I offered. "Honestly, it might be easier to open up to someone who isn't directly part of his everyday life." Chayton nodded slowly, smiling softly. He made a wise choice. The days that followed passed quietly, though Nashoba's words lingered constantly on my mind. It wasn't until nearly a week later, just as twilight was settling in, that I received a message from Nashoba. "Would you meet me tomorrow evening at Riverside Park, just for a walk, perhaps around T by P?" And my pulse quickened, sensing the significance of this next step. Without hesitation, I replied affirmatively. The next evening I arrived early. Riverside Park was serene, a canopy of trees arching gracefully above the walkway, their leaves whispering gently in the cool autumn breeze. The glow of lampposts illuminated the path, their reflections shimmering softly on the river's calm surface. Nashoba appeared moments later, his casual attire emphasizing a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. He greeted me warmly, relief evident in his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he began, gently falling into step beside me. "I admit I was worried you might change your mind." "I wouldn't," I reassured, softly smiling up at him. "I promised to help." Andy meant it. Together we walked along the riverside beneath stars just beginning to emerge in the deepening twilight. Our conversation flowed naturally, gradually moving beyond casual exchanges toward deeper personal truths. Nashoba shared glimpses of his past, his struggle to balance professional success with emotional openness, and his fears about never truly knowing intimacy. His honesty moved me deeply. In return, I shared parts of my own journey, my vulnerabilities and triumphs with Chayton, and what it meant to truly connect on an emotional level. Each revelation seemed to bridge the gap between us, fostering mutual trust and genuine respect. By the time we paused near a bench overlooking the river, the gentle hum of crickets accompanied the soft rustle of leaves. Nashoba gazed thoughtfully across the water, moonlight reflecting softly in his eyes. "You know," he said quietly, almost whispering, "I can't remember for the last time I felt this comfortable simply talking to someone." I smiled softly, feeling deeply touched by his openness. It's easy to talk when you feel safe. That's the first step toward connection. Nashoba turned toward me, sincerity shining brightly in his eyes. "Thank you for showing me that. I can't tell ya how much tonight means." As we sat together quietly, the tension I'd first felt faded completely into comfortable companionship. It was clear that tonight was just the beginning of something deeply meaningful, not a threat to my marriage, but rather an exploration of emotional growth, mutual respect, and the unexpected connections life sometimes offers. Little did I know just how profoundly this friendship would soon impact all our lives. The weeks that followed our meeting at Riverside Park brought surprising clarity to my friendship with Nashoba. Each conversation deepened the bond of trust we had established. Nashoba had grown visibly more comfortable sharing his emotions, asking thoughtful questions about communication, relationships, and intimacy. Chayton fully supported our newfound friendship, understanding my intention was nothing but sincere and genuine. Yet beneath the surface, an unexpected tension slowly emerged, one that neither Nashoba nor I openly acknowledged, but both clearly felt. Our conversations had gradually become longer, more personal, and sometimes extended late into the evenings. The emotional connection we shared was undeniable, yet carefully maintained within respectful boundaries. One evening, just as winter's first frost coated the rooftops, Chayton announced he'd have to fly out of town for a 2-day business trip. "I'll be home Thursday night," he said softly, kissing my forehead gently as he packed. "Promise you'll be all right without me." I chuckled softly, playfully pushing his shoulder. "Of course, it's only 2 nights. I'm perfectly capable," he laughed, eyes twinkling warmly. "I know you are. Just promise you'll call if you need anything." "I promise," I whispered, feeling a momentary flutter of loneliness as I watched him leave. On the second evening of Chayton's trip, just after sunset, my phone buzzed. It was Nashoba. "Are you free tonight? There's something I'd really like to talk about. A boutique-person dinner, perhaps?" Hesitation lingered briefly in my chest, but curiosity quickly overcame caution. I replied, "Yes, I'm free. What time?" "Within minutes." Nashoba suggested a quiet restaurant at the edge of town, private enough to speak openly, yet comfortably public. We agreed to meet at 7 p.m. When I arrived, Nashoba was already seated, looking thoughtfully at slightly nervous. The softly lit restaurant was warm and inviting, decorated in rich earth tones that felt intimate and comforting. "You look lovely." Winona, Nashoba greeted warmly. As I approached, his voice gentle. "Thank you," I replied softly, feeling a small flutter in my stomach. I knew this night was different from our previous conversations. Dinner flowed smoothly, though the conversation remained cautious at first. Nashoba seemed distracted, as if gathering courage for something important. "Nashoba, are you all right?" I finally asked, sensing his tension. He smiled weakly, running a hand through his hair, clearly nervous. "There's something I need to say, Winona, and I genuinely don't know how you'll react." I paused with my pulse quickening. "It's all right. Whatever it is, we can discuss it openly." Nashoba hesitated again, then exhaled slowly. "Winona, these past few months have changed my life. Your friendship has shown me depths of emotion I never imagined possible." But he looked away, struggling with his words, then finally met my gaze directly. "I've realized recently that my feelings have grown stronger than friendship," he admitted quietly. "Sincerely, I never intended it. But my feelings for you have deepened beyond what I expected." I stared silently, heart racing, unsure how to respond. His words, while surprising, also felt strangely validating, echoing a truth I had quietly buried within myself. I swallowed carefully, striving to keep my voice steady. "Nashoba, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't felt it too, I admit it honestly, but you know I love Chayton deeply, I know. Nashoba quickly assured, I respect that completely. I don't want to complicate your life or Chayton. I only wanted to be honest, because honesty brought us here. I nodded, feeling my breath tremble softly. I appreciate your courage, Nashoba. It means a lot that you trust me enough to share this. A long silence stretched between us, the tension was palpable. Neither uncomfortable nor awkward, simply heavy with emotion, finally. Nashoba broke the quiet, his voice gentle but decisive, perhaps. It's best if we maintain distance for a while, he suggested, carefully, clearly pained by the idea your marriage and our integrity must come first. Deep sadness filled me, mixed with respect and gratitude for his maturity. Perhaps you're right, I whispered softly. Even as the thought ached within me, dinner ended shortly afterward, both of us quietly aware that this might be our last conversation for some time. Outside, the cold night air brushed my cheeks as we stepped toward our cars. The street was empty, illuminated softly by the glow of a single lamp. Nashoba paused, looking deeply into my eyes. Winona, before we part, may I do something just this once? My breath caught, heart racing wildly, yet my voice remained gentle. Yes, slowly, tenderly. Nashoba stepped closer, gently lifting my chin to meet his gaze. His eyes were filled with warmth, respect, and a longing tempered by deep restraint. Carefully, tenderly, he pressed his lips softly against my cheek, lingering just a moment longer than expected. It was innocent, respectful, yet infinitely powerful. Thank you, he whispered, gently stepping away for everything. He turned, walking slowly toward his car, leaving me standing quietly beneath the gentle glow of the street lamp, my heart overwhelmed by emotion. The drive home felt endless, thoughts racing. I'd crossed no physical boundaries, yet emotionally something profound had undeniably shifted. Chayton returned home the next evening, and I greeted him warmly, yet throughout the following days my mind continually drifted back to that night. Nashoba's honesty, the kiss on my cheek, and the quiet intensity of our farewell. One morning, nearly a week later, I received a handwritten note delivered to my mailbox. The handwriting was Nashoba's, gentle, thoughtful, and unmistakably sincere. Winona, I've spent these days reflecting deeply on everything we've shared. My respect and admiration for you only grow stronger. Meeting you has profoundly changed me, helping me understand the man I wish to become, but respecting your happiness with Chayton is my greatest priority. I've decided to take some time away to travel and clear my mind. Know that wherever I am, I'll always carry gratitude for what you've taught me about honesty, connection, and emotional courage. You've forever impacted my life, and for that I'll always be thankful. With deepest sincerity, Nashoba. Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness alone, but also from the depth of his. Nashoba had given me something profound, insight into my own heart, the true meaning of emotional connection, and a deeper appreciation for my marriage with Chayton. As I carefully tucked the letter away, Chayton's voice called warmly from the kitchen. Winona, breakfast is ready. Taking a deep breath, I smiled softly to myself, moving toward my husband's voice, heart filled with renewed appreciation, clarity, and quiet gratitude for all that had transpired. But even then, I couldn't help but wonder if Nashoba and I would ever cross paths again, and how that moment might reshape our futures forever. Months passed. Quietly after Nashoba's departure, life with Chayton had returned to a comfortable, familiar rhythm, yet I couldn't deny that my experiences with Nashoba had transformed something deep inside of me. I cherished my marriage more deeply than ever, but I also understood myself in ways I'd never imagined then. One quiet spring morning, Chayton surprised me with unexpected news at breakfast. Winona, you'll never guess who reached out to me yesterday, he said casually, pouring fresh coffee into my favorite mug. Who? I asked curiously, my heart fluttering softly in anticipation. He smiled warmly. Nashoba. He's back in town and he invited us for dinner tomorrow night, said he missed catching up, and that he'd like us both to come. My breath caught momentarily, a swirl of emotions filling me, excitement, mingled with nervousness, but above all curiosity. "How do you feel about it?" I asked carefully. Watching Chayton's reaction, he shrugged easily, sitting beside me. "Honestly, I'm glad. I've missed him, and whatever conversations you two shared, I think they've done him a lot of good. He sounds different, calmer, more thoughtful." I relaxed instantly. Grateful again for Chayton's steady trust. "Then while go, it'll be good to see him." Again the next evening we arrived at Nashoba's home, feeling strangely reminiscent of our first dinner party there. Nashoba welcomed us warmly, and as our eyes met, a deep and respectful understanding passed silently between us. Dinner was filled with laughter and warmth. Beneath the casual conversation lingered subtle, yet meaningful acknowledgments of everything we'd experienced. Nashoba was indeed changed. More open, relaxed, and confident in himself emotionally. Seeing that transformation moved me profoundly, affirming the significance of the bond we'd shared later. As Chayton stepped away to answer a quick call from work, Nashoba gently turned me. The evening air drifting through an open window carried a fragrance of fresh blossoms and new beginnings. "Winona," he began, softly, sincere warmth radiating from his eyes, "seeing you and Chayton together tonight. Truly happy. It fills me with gratitude. I needed you to know that our friendship taught me the greatest lessons of my life. You showed me the courage it takes to genuinely love, respect, and let go." My throat tightened, heart swelling gently. "Nashoba, I'm proud of you. You've grown so much." "It's inspiring," he smiled gently, nodding slowly. "Because of you, I've learned that true love is selfless. It seeks the happiness of others, even if it means stepping back." Chayton returned at that moment, smiling warmly at both of us, sensing only friendship and comfort. The evening drew to a close, and as Chayton thanked Nashoba warmly, promising to catch up again soon, Nashoba offered one final heartful glance toward me as Chayton headed to the car. Nashoba briefly touched my arm, his voice quiet, filled with gentle sincerity. "Thank you, Winona," he whispered softly, his eyes reflecting gratitude, respect, and quiet longing for everything. I squeezed his hand gently in returning without words that we had both grown profoundly from this unexpected journey. "Be happy, Nashoba. You deserve it," he nodded slowly, stepping back with quiet dignity, a peaceful smile spreading across his face. On our drive home, Chayton glanced thoughtfully in my direction, taking my hand gently. "You've truly impacted him, Winona," Chayton said softly, admiration clear in his voice. "Nashoba looks genuinely happy. Whatever happened between you two, you changed his life." Tears welled softly, and I squeezed Chayton's hand tighter. "He changed mine too. It made me realize just how lucky I am to have what we have." Chayton smiled warmly, eyes filled with tenderness. "We've built something incredible, haven't we?" "We have," I whispered softly, smiling gently as we drove beneath a canopy of stars that night. Standing quietly on our porch beneath the silvery moonlight, I reflected on everything I had experienced. The bond with Nashoba had tested my heart, strengthened my marriage, and taught me invaluable lessons about honesty, respect, and emotional courage. I realized something. Profound emotional connection wasn't about possession or even physical intimacy. It was the willingness to open one's heart fully, to embrace vulnerability, and to honor the boundaries that protect the hearts of others. It was about loving deeply, enough to wish someone happiness, even if that happiness meant letting go, turning back into the warmth of my home. I found Chayton waiting quietly, offering his hand lovingly. "You all right?" he asked, softly wrapping me gently in his embrace. "Better than ever," I replied, honestly, smiling into his chest, feeling comfort and gratitude flood through me. "I wouldn't trade this life we've built for anything." As Chayton held me, I knew with absolute clarity that my heart was exactly where it belonged. The emotional journey with Nashoba had not weakened our love, rather it had illuminated its true depth and resilience. I felt reborn, grounded, and profoundly grateful. In the months and years that followed, Nashoba became a respected friend. His life filled with emotional depth, sincerity, and eventually genuine love of his own home. Chayton and I often shared evenings of laughter and friendship with him, never again feeling the tension or uncertainty of that earlier chapter. Looking back, I realized the most profound truths often come from unexpected places. What Nashoba's suggestion had triggered that shocking night, though challenging at first, had ultimately become enough, my life's greatest gifts. It showed me the true meaning of emotional intimacy, the power of boundaries, and the strength that comes from honoring our deepest truths, and so life moved gently forward, filled with deeper understanding, stronger relationships, and the peace that only comes after the storm of uncertainty has passed, leaving behind clarity, warmth, and an everlasting sense of gratitude.